So the mechanical guys are saying, yeah, cleaner products are a problem. The air quality monitors are going, yeah, cleaner products are a problem. And the cleaning industry is going, what problem? We started talking to people about this and started introducing the idea of using probiotics, which was shown to have benefits above and beyond the chemicals. And then you started looking at, well, let's see what cleaners breathe in. And you realize that there's reports on this already. There's already reports saying that the person who does most of the cleaning in the house is the chemical exposure equivalent to 20 cigarettes a day. There's already reports showing that cleaners with 10 years experience are 58% more likely to get lung cancer, even though they excluded smokers from that particular study. So there's all of these things are out there. What about the effect on the environment? And you're talking about millions of litres in the name of hygiene, millions of litres of effectively mild poison.
Joe, welcome to the Accidental Gods podcast. How are you and where are you this lovely sunny morning?
Thank you, man. That's great. Great to be here. This is sunny Essex, sunny southeast, in Essex. So this is obviously an Essex accent.
Yeah, I can tell. Yes, it's a beautiful Essex accent, I have to say. For people not in the UK, this is not an Essex accent. This is an Irish accent. But Joe's masquerading as being English. Must be quite hard. You're not really Essex. You're just working in Essex.
You're working in Essex.
Tell me how you ended up in Essex before we head off into the esoteric things of microbiota. Tell me about Essex.
Yeah, well, how does anybody end up in Essex? And it's a really interesting question because we've been asking ourselves. And originally went to London, as Irish boys do, back in the late 80s. And Ireland at the time, I think our county was 27% unemployment.
Whoa.
Yeah. So we come over here. County Louth.
Sorry.
Yeah. We pronounce it loud, L-O-U-D. So it's loud and proud.
Right. So, loud and proud and unemployed.
Loud and proud and unemployed with not much prospects. So heard tell of work in London, and I knew a priest over here who had a hostel for Irish boys who were coming over working and making sure he got them on the right road and paying tax and all signed up and all that kind of thing. So come over here to Hammersmith and could not believe the amount of jobs in London. It was, really? I couldn't believe, that they were actually looking for people. Gosh. And I had a funny story. The day after I arrived, it was a Saturday morning, and I was in King Street in Hammersmith, and there was a shop on the corner with A4 posters in it advertising jobs and salary. So I thought, oh, maybe this is where the Irish boys go and put their name in the window. So I walked in and I said, I've just arrived. Can I put my name in the window? And there was a bit of a curious, confused conversation for a minute or so until these people explained that this was an employment agency.
Right. And these were jobs.
They were looking
for people.
And I'd never heard tell of this ridiculous idea. And and then from there, sort of one job led to another job very quickly. And that was me embedded into London, loving the music scene in London as well, which is probably
Are you a musician?
Yeah, I'm a drummer.
Right. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So loved a bit of rock. Yes. And so that was great in London and just enjoying myself. And then met my now wife. She was from the Midlands in England, and one thing led to another, and we thought time to get out of London into somewhere quieter. And then that brought us to Essex. I've been working out here, and I thought, oh, it's going to save me a few thousand miles a year. And moved to a little town in Essex, and that was it, really. You put down roots, and you think, okay, I'll try and brighten this place up, kind of thing. No, I didn't think that, but looking back, maybe that was what was going on. Why else did we end up in a place where we knew nobody?
Right.
And then you have kids, and you put down roots, and you meet some friends, and you get back into playing the drums, and on it goes. And here we are in Essex, and that's condensing that big time.
Yes, but that's a lifetime into a few minutes. Well done. I used to work at the veterinary practice in Saffron Walden, actually, so it's probably not too far from where you are.
No, just less than an hour up the road, just past past the airport, right there.
Right,
yeah.
Lovely
part
so
of the
you're
world.
down south. Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So we want to head into what it is you work as, because you own, am I right, Ingenious Probiotics. You are the owner?
Yes, there's two of us. We own Ingenious Probiotics, and which brings in the Provolone range from Luxembourg of probiotics. And it was the thing that, I suppose, to try and help explain what probiotics are and where they fit. It's probably a good idea to sort of just do a little history lesson again, that being involved in the air conditioning industry, which is where I was when I found out and realized that I wasn't going to be a rock star. So better make the most of it. And
oh no,
I know it was a big reveal, the shock horror. So was in that industry and got quite involved in what people breathe in, because when you're looking after people inside a building, health and wellness in the built environment, in other words, everything that affects people inside a building or inside a train carriage or inside a pub,
which is
or inside
a closed environment, and you're controlling what's coming in and then what's being sucked out.
Exactly. And this can be everything from light, natural light and fluorescent, whatever, heat, temperature, drafts, humidity control, carbon dioxide control. Later on, that became COVID control, but that's a whole other thing. So this got us involved then we were naturally drawn towards the health aspect of this, because we started finding out just what people were breathing in. And there are certain rules around, if you're building a building, that you have to bring in so much air from the outside for the amount of people that are going to be inside that building. And that's all okay and straightforward, and how you do it, and ductwork sizing and whatever, and how you distribute that air, and then how you control it. And then that became very involved in energy efficiency and worrying about the polar caps melting and so on. We'll get back to in a minute. But this idea of bringing in what they called fresh air intrigued me. And when we looked at what we were bringing in from the outside, it wasn't fresh. So unless you are in Connemara or somewhere in the Highlands,
right,
or
you're breathing car exhausts and whatever the farmers are spraying on the fields and whatever happens to be falling in the rain, which these days is polyfluorinated alkaline substances. And wow. Okay.
All of this kind of stuff. So we were very intrigued with this whole idea of our instruction to bring fresh air. And we had this image of this guy cycling into his office in London, and then getting into the safe haven of inside the building. But it's our job to pump the outside stuff into him. No escape. And around at this time, we started finding out about air purification, because we were looking at better ways to deliver air. This got us involved in one of the suppliers we were working with over on the other side of the Atlantic had this fabulous air purification, which is effectively like a catalytic converter with UV lamps and so on. So we were taking chemicals out of the air. And that became like my first love, cleaning up the air that people were breathing in. And we were realizing that people and whatever animal that breathes takes in a lot more air, not just oxygen, a lot more air in kilograms than it does food.
So give us the numbers, because I heard this on another podcast that you did recently, and it's astonishing. How many kilograms of air do we breathe a day?
Roughly speaking, depending on your size, you're going to be somewhere like 10 to 15 kilograms of air.
Which is huge. The amount of air in a kilogram. Do you know how much that is in cubic meters?
It's about, if I remember my A-level physics, I think it's 1 cubic meter is a kilogram.
Of air?
So 1 cubic meter. I might be missing a zero or a decimal point, but I'm sure it's that, or maybe it's 10.
Okay.
So it's 1,000 liters, or is it 10,000 liters? Anyway, it's quite, when you look at it, you put them all together in a block, it's quite a lot.
Yeah.
So we're breathing this stuff in, and it's containing all kinds of stuff. And then you start finding little reports that kind of prick your ears up and go, why isn't the whole HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning industry talking about this report I've just read that says, for example, one that comes to mind, they thought that maybe the reports were incorrect and there was twice as many people dying in Europe from air quality than they thought. Instead of being just under 400,000. It was 790,000 a year dying from air quality. And you go, well, okay, that's a lot of people. And then you realize that the indoor air quality is way worse than the outdoor air quality.
Right.
And I'm thinking, surely the NHS would love to know about this. This is important stuff. So while we're talking about cleaning air up and scrubbing it and taking out the chemicals, trying to reduce then, if possible, the amount of outside air we take in, especially in a town. And it could be in the middle of Saffron Walden. You get a bit of traffic jam at Saffron Walden, you might as well be in Oxford Street.
Yeah. And you still have to breathe the air. It's not like you can stop breathing the air.
Exactly. So you still got it. You can't diet your air, know.
Yeah, you can't drink stuff out of bottles that's allegedly purified unless you're walking along with a canister and a mask over your face. You just have to breathe what's around you.
Does exist in Canada. You can go to China and buy Canadian compressed air in a can.
Whoa.
Would you believe? Yeah, I know. With a little mask and
capitalism working as intended.
Crazy. It's sell some fresh air. Okay, so that's like selling snow to Eskimos. But yeah, absolutely crazy. But we were seeing all these things and going, hang on, why is it just us talking about these things? Why is it little old us going, hang on a minute, this is killing people. This is causing all kinds of things.
Because there's the mortality rate, but the morbidity rate is going to be many, many, many times the mortality rate. So the number of people whose health is diminished because they're breathing in crap is far more than the ones who are actually dying. And provably dying just from that, because it must be quite hard to say this person died because they were breathing in a percentage of car exhaust. There's going to be a lot of people who die that we don't pick up as that.
This is it. And explaining morbidity to most people, you have to explain, they don't know that it exists, those morbidity figures, that people dying earlier than they should do. I've read another report recently about people in India, they reckon there's something like 12 years shortened lifespan because of air quality. So that was nice to read that people are flagging this up. So we were thinking, why is it just us? So we just got on a merry way. We weren't really getting traction. But we felt like we were doing something, I guess, lighting a candle, if you want to put it like that, and the dark. So that was our focus. And then we found out in the late, around about 2018 or something, we found out there was this thing called probiotics that we could add in after we do the air purification. So after we take the bad things out in a ducted air conditioning ventilation thing, we could put this good thing in. And the reason we wanted to do this wasn't that people would breathe in the probiotics, is that the probiotics, we'll explain what they are in a minute, but they would go into the air system and they would drop onto the surfaces. And we were trying to get people to stop using air fresheners. So how you can put chemicals in a bottle and write the word air freshener on it is crazy, right? But you can. Formaldehydes, all kinds of carcinogens. So we thought, as part of the finding more ways to make the inside of a building safe for people to breathe the air, we could put the probiotics in there. They would then fall onto the surfaces. They eat organic waste. Most of the odors
bacteria eat organic waste.
Exactly. So probiotic is just an umbrella term. It's a World Health Organization term for any kind of microorganism that confers a benefit. So you might be taking probiotic capsules. You'd be aware of it. They're probiotics in yogurt. Exactly. And they're going into your gut and doing a similar job there. But here, initially, we were just looking to stop the odors happening, because most odors are coming from biological sources. So if we can stop the odor happening, then people were less likely to reach for the chemical masking spray.
Yeah.
So they'd still have whatever was causing the odor, but now they had another chemical laying on top of that, which is what they were sensing. So we thought, well, let's get rid of that. So that's where we got involved in probiotics in the very first place. And also by removing, dust mite, poop and pollens and dead skin cells that the probiotics would eat, there's less chance of us finding their ways into the breathable air when people sort of pat the back of their sofa or walk across a carpet and disturb it, right? So it was a double win for us there, all about indoor air quality and safety. And this is, remember, way before COVID, changed things. So the probiotics would land on the surface, and it's a particular cocktail and different products of different cocktails, and they would release enzymes if they bumped into food. If they didn't bump into any food, they'd stay in their original slumber condition, which is like a spore. So they're like like a grass seed. You imagine the grass seed's in a spore, it's in your hand, it's going to do nothing until you put it in the ground, give it some water and food, and it turns into a vegetative state. So the probiotics were similar. If they landed on something that had zero organic waste on it, they'd just stay asleep. When they bump into some food, they'd release an enzyme, different enzymes depending on whatever, so they can release multiple enzymes and multiple different types of enzymes continually. They're breaking up the organic matter, and then the probiotic are consuming it. So we were removing that organic waste of bioallergens,
yep,
and stopping the others happening. So
and
that's
also
what
stopping the likelihood of allergic responses to mites or dead skin cells or any of the things, or pet fur, whatever it is that people might be allergic to.
That's right. And
What
we're not
happens
using
if
the
the
allergen.
people inhale the spores and they go into their lungs? Do they find food there? Do they then
No,
develop?
the spores we use are safe enough to be, they're human food grade.
Right.
And it's a lot less than the amount of bacteria you're going to breathe in your day
Obviously,
anyway.
yes. No, I was thinking they might do good things way down in your lungs, but
not so much. It's just because it's not an environment that they can, it's an anaerobic environment, and they're in wet. So our probiotics are designed to be out in the oxygen, in the open space, doing their thing there. But
okay.
yeah, they're actually completely safe.
But I
but
must
also
have a lung biome as well as a skin biome and a gut biome and kind
and a
of
brain biome.
and
Sure.
tears and
Yeah.
ears. There must be a
Yeah.
biome in down in my alveoli, is there not?
Do you know, there's going to be, but that's
Right.
not something that
Okay,
we
we're not
help with.
working with that. Alrighty.
We're not working with that. We do know that some of the spores we use, some of the strains, are also advertised as used in consumable food probiotics, for example.
Right.
So we know we're conferring a benefit in other ways.
Yep.
But we don't really. We got plates are
So you happen
full.
to lick your finger, wipe down the stainless steel, and then lick your finger again, which I admit is extremely unlikely. But whatever you take in is going to perhaps maintain your mouth biome or your gut biome.
Yes. In
Okay.
fact, we go even further than that. With the pets, our biggest selling product is a probiotic for the dental area, sprayed directly onto the gums and teeth.
Let's
That's
get
our
onto that later. Let's stay on because your process is really interesting.
Yeah.
So you're still with an air conditioning company. You're looking at how you can not only filter out the bad stuff, but begin to put in stuff that will enhance the quality of the air and hopefully diminish people's use of the highly toxic chemicals that are marketed as air fresheners and are basically just poisons that smell in a way that somehow we have been educated to. I have to say, I think the smell of air fresheners is completely horrible. But people have got to a point where they like the smell of chemicals, or they think it's clean, or I don't know, some weird limbic stuff going on. So you're trying to diminish the use of the basic toxins that people would otherwise spray around.
Absolutely. Chemical reduction is our big thing. And I can tell you the next step in the process, but then let's go back to something you just said, which is really ticking the box. All of this was happening at a time when we had air quality monitors in the office. And one Monday, one of the guys in our team said, "Hey, the cleaner was in on Sunday instead of Saturday. And he's just shooting the breeze." And how did you know? He said, and he picked his iPad up and went, "Look, our quality monitors spiked on the Sunday. They usually spike on a Saturday."
Oh, interesting. And this is bad quality or good
Yeah.
quality?
Well, air quality monitor went, "Whoa, yeah, bad
stuff.
problem." Yeah.
Right.
Now, we were dealing with the probiotic company we're dealing with had a big collection of other probiotic products, including a full cleaning range. Now, we were, if you like, when it comes to looking after buildings, you got what we call a hard section and a soft section. The hard section is going to be your electrical wiring, your plumbing, your air conditioning. The soft section is your cleaning, your toilet paper, your hands, So there was a bit of a line there. You tended to be one or the other. So we looked at this and went, "Oh, hang on. We may be looking at this completely wrong. We may be spending too much time trying to get rid of bad things and not enough time stopping bad things being in the breathable space in the first place." So we straight away started talking to the manufacturer. He said, yep, okay. So now we had an ability to use probiotic-based cleaning, which was using probiotics, like we just discussed, instead of chemical-based cleaning products. Now, bearing in mind, we already knew that the cleaner products were an issue because in the back end of the HVAC industry, you will find mentions from the people on high about cleaning products, and be aware of them because they are a problem for the people you're trying to look after in the building with your ventilation.
What's HVAC?
HVAC's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning.
Oh, okay. Right.
Just, the mechanical guys. So the mechanical guys are saying, yep, cleaner products are a problem. The air quality monitors are going, yep, cleaner products are a problem. And the cleaning industry is going, what problem? So we started talking to people about this and started introducing the idea of using probiotics, which was shown to have benefits above and beyond the chemicals. But also because we were now reading, because of our background, we were reading about what people breathe in. And then you started looking at, let's see what cleaners breathe in. And you realize that there's reports on this already. There's already reports that saying that the person who does most of the cleaning in the house is the chemical exposure equivalent to 20 cigarettes a day. There's already reports showing that cleaners with 10 years experience are 58% more likely to get lung cancer, even though they excluded smokers from that particular study. So there's all of these things are out there. People are aware of it. And then you start. So we were kind of thinking, this needs to change. Well, naively, Amanda, I'm thinking, I'd mention it to all the cleaning industry one time and they're all going to flock to our door.
Oh, yeah, right. No.
Yeah. Which is great. Yeah, literally that. And had people tell us that, what's your price? What about this cancer reduction? What about this? What about that? Yeah. What about the effect on the environment? And you're talking about millions of liters in the name of hygiene, millions of liters of effectively mild poison.
Yeah.
Going into the
atmosphere. Because you said formaldehyde. And others, the stuff that they spray around, if it's going to kill all the bacteria, it's going to kill everything. What does it do to soil? What does it do to water if it goes out in the outflow? If it kills 99% of all germs dead, then it's annihilating the living world when it gets there.
Yep. And I think I saw a speech last year from a nutritionist. He was saying that Britain is something like in the top 10 worst in the world for loss of biodiversity.
Well, I don't know about you, but I have seen so few insects this year.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
There was a report in The Guardian at the time of recording yesterday saying that bats are dying of starvation because there are not enough insects.
Wow.
That's because our government for the last however long has promoted industrial farming, and the people in the industries that are poisoning stuff don't want to know that this is, their industry is their mortgage and they don't want to stop. It's really hard to get someone to understand something if their income depends on their not understanding it.
There's the rub. Because, as you mentioned, people would associate certain smells with cleanliness. And I was doing an expo for somebody and a nurse came up to me and said, talking about our dog's health, she said, I really like the smell of bleach. Please help me. Yeah, she actually said, please help me. And so we had a big talk about it. And she worked in a hospital. And as far as she was concerned, that bleach smell equated to cleanliness. And I said, cleanliness doesn't actually have a smell.
Yeah.
And things that smell bad aren't always bad for you. Some of the worst poisons don't have any smell. So, but this is a thing we've been conditioned to smell. And for millions of years or however long it takes for humans to develop, body odor and whatever, hey, we just, we smell a bit. It's no big deal. But we're conditioned to equate smells and scents. But I think sometimes people like other people to know that they've done the cleaning.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I get a tick. My limbic system gets a little pulse of other people being kind to me because they can tell I've been. It's exactly like your cleaner was there on the Sunday and you got the spike in the reports of the air quality, but the cleaner is like, I've done a really good job because the whole building smells of being
furniture
clean.
polish or whatever. Yeah. Scary stuff. And I think, I don't need the banister to shine. I don't need that.
Yeah.
I spray my probiotic cleaner on the cloth and I run it, job done. So the rub here is that if you've made a lot of money over decades, since the Second World War, let's say, in promoting this, and now you find that this is part of the problem, how do you step back from that without becoming the next Roundup or the next Teflon?
Or the next Kraft? Because several decades ago, the CEO, I think, of Kraft went to an industry meeting and said, hey guys, ultra-processed foods are killing people. We need to stop doing this. And was shut down.
Oh.
So, because no, sorry, we're making money. You're welcome to label all your foods as this might not be the best thing to eat, but we're not going to bother.
And that probably happened at a time when certain manufacturers were proclaiming quite heavy confectionery bars as one of those a day helps you work, rest and play.
Yes, it's quite. Yes.
Not just have one as a treat on a Sunday.
No, exactly. No,
this
is an essential food source.
Yeah. So how do you come back from that without leaving yourself exposed? When you know full well that the chemical buildup in us and around us, not just around us, but in us, is a problem. Something like 99% of Danish children, when I did a test, had the anti-flea spot-on neurotoxins that they put in the back. They had that
it's in their skin. Yeah.
In their hair. It's crazy.
Because they cuddle the animals. And the whole point of those things is that they're lipophilic. They dissolve in skin fat. That's the point. You put it in the back of your dog and it goes right through its skin because it dissolves in the fat. And so you pick up the dog or the cat and cuddle it. Guess what?
Yeah. And of course, you're washing your hands afterwards. So now these are building up in British rivers. These are a problem in British rivers. Products that are already banned in farming. And so all part of this thing. And when you come to cleaning chemicals, and the cleaners talk about the cleaning product as a chemical. That's how to differentiate it from, say, cleaning equipment like mops and buckets. The euphemism, hey, the cleaning chemicals. So trying to persuade people to come away from chemicals when they're brought up that that's how you clean. You kill bacteria. Bacteria is bad. We got to kill it. And when you try and say, look, if humans got onto the planet, if the planet is a year and humans got here at like 10 to midnight, then the bacteria have been here since March.
Yeah.
And the air we breathe, the existence of everything around us, every life form is directly attributed to these guys. We will die without them. Yeah. We have about 20 trillion microorganisms in us and around us. In most cases, in perfect harmony. And you're carrying a couple of kilos around in your gut. Very important in the breakdown of food. You're feeding your bacteria. Bacteria is feeding your body, right?
Yeah.
So, and the symbiosis between bacteria and some animals is to the extent that there's some animals out there in the kingdom, I'm thinking small animals and fish, whatever, could not exist. Would not be able to reproduce.
I imagine a ruminant could not exist without the contents of the ruminant, the contents or any herbivore. Can't exist without the gut bacteria that break down cellulose. That's otherwise mammals are really bad at breaking down cellulose.
So if you've got a cow or your dog and you're looking after their microbiome and spending in some cases a lot of money on good quality, food.
Yeah.
And then you're spraying stuff around them that's designed specifically to kill bacteria, not this bacteria or that bacteria, just all bacteria, 99.99% of bacteria.
Yes.
And then one of the things we try and ask people to ask themselves is, okay, you use this, what happens next? Be it an antibacterial shampoo for your pet, be it an antibacterial wipe for your kitchen table. What happens next? And most of the time, people think, oh, crikey, I've never thought about what happens next.
Yeah. How long does it stay totally sterile?
How long? Does nature abhor a vacuum? Yes, she does. So you've got a time period that you're going to count in minutes before that kitchen table is covered in bacteria again. Only this time, you don't know what bacteria is going to be covered in. Depends what way the wind's blowing and who walks past and so on. And in some cases, of course, you don't kill all the bacteria. You kill nearly all the bacteria, but the ones that survive can be the stronger versions of the bad ones.
Yeah, they're the ones that eat bleach for breakfast. And you don't necessarily want those lying around.
Yeah. So if you said, you know about horses and so, but if you said to somebody, right, breed me the strongest bacteria, then they would design a system similar to chemical cleaning.
Yeah.
Kill all the bacteria's competition, kill all the weak versions of that bacteria, allow only the strong to survive, and do that process continually, and you end up with
MRSA.
With MRSA.
And the odd thing is that horse people know this because we've been developing really resistant horseworms for quite a while now, and people have got to that's probably not a clever thing to be doing, is to give them the same wormer every 3 months for the whole of their lives, and you end up with worms that go, yes, feed me more of that. That's really lovely. But people haven't, even this is why I really wanted to talk to you, once it's been explained by someone like you, it's obvious, but I hadn't really taken it on board. And I think the fact that all the air that we're breathing in is full of bacteria, the fact that we can't see them, the water is full of bacteria, well, unless you live where I do, where it's got fluoride and chlorine. But, the water that comes off the hill that we actually drink, because we don't want the stuff with the fluoride and the chlorine in, is full of bacteria. And it's not a bad thing. We're inculcated from childhood, germs are bad.
Yeah.
And they're not. And I think that's one of the things I really want to get across to people from you is that we need these. We exist in a healthy symbiotic system, and most of the bacteria that we live with are necessary for our health. Let's go back to your path, because you're still in our narrative. You're still selling air conditioning, or at least trying to make sure people are breathing clean air, which is not the same as selling air conditioning. I get that. And you've discovered that the cleaner came on a Sunday, and that that stopping people using evil chemicals that are going to create toxic residue is a bad thing. But that we still haven't made the move to Ingenious. And I remember hearing you on somebody else's podcast saying you listened to a guy for whom English was like his 8th language, saying that the reason he got up in the morning was what he could do for the animals. Tell us a little bit about your transition from breathable air to where you are now.
Yeah, that, getting goosebumps here, because I remember it very precisely. And so now we're getting into the soft side. Now we want to take the harsh chemical out of people's hands and put in the probiotic-based cleaner instead. And I'm talking to the guy about this. And this is a chap who was born with cancer. Is the like,
whoa?
It wasn't actually cancer, but it was a cat. And I didn't ask too many questions, but effectively he didn't get out of hospital until he was 3 years old, from the day he was born. By the time he was 7, he'd had so many infections that antibiotics no longer work on him.
Right.
Okay. And
he's a living MRSA, basically.
So he's like got to keep away from infection. So this is a guy who's promoting probiotic cleaning as being better for health and better for clinical health than chemical based cleaning. So we're talking about this, and he's as the meeting is finished, and the way the meeting comes to the close. Okay, you've had your 12 coffees or whatever, and
all the interesting stuff happens in the coffee breaks. We all know that anyway.
Yeah. And it was just kind of like myself and himself, and I'm getting up, hands on the arm of the chair, and he says, yeah, but what gets me out of bed in the morning, and he's speaking, like I say, it's force language or something, is what we do for animals. And I say it right back then. And he says, oh yeah, so we do the same technology, if I could use that word, it's probably not the right word, but the same natural based process for dog shampoo, for ear care, for skin care, for teeth care, directly onto horses, directly onto cats and dogs and any animal you want to name. And in which case I'm going, wow. Now,
were you an animal person anyway? Did you have cats and dogs and budgies and hamsters?
Yeah, I've always been a cat guy.
Okay.
So cool. And which is really interesting. So we learned a lot about pet care, and that's been a wonderful, wonderful journey. And so here's me on this day thinking, oh, we need to cross the aisle, if you like, from hard mechanical surfaces into soft. And then it's like a 90 degree to the left. And this feeling of, so this is what the universe was getting me to do. This is why I was learning about what people breathe in and so on. And you've got one of those moments where you go, yeah, okay, I'm listening. All right. So, and that led us down a particular track. But being typically dumb and stupid, I was really still thinking that I was looking to focus on the cleaning because that's where the millions of liters of nasty stuff gets used. So we were focusing on that and trying to speak to people, and trying to reduce chemical use. And we started letting people know about the animal care products and using them ourselves. And it was great introducing one of my vet friends and so on. And then we started
importing them from Luxembourg.
And we bring them from Luxembourg, all under the same brand, Provolane. And Provolane is made up of 3 French words, Provolane, which stands for life balance.
Oh, cool.
For life balance. And I love that because it's part of the ethos. As you said, a little bit of bad bacteria in you is good. It keeps your immune system awake. As long as it's balanced, as long as you got way more of the good bacteria than the bad bacteria, most of us have staphylococcus on our hands. We don't have a staph infection.
Exactly.
It's no biggie.
Yeah.
It's no biggie. It's about that. So we just put lots more of the good guys. So we increase that balance.
Right.
In
the ratio of beneficial to perhaps potentially pathogenic, but not pathogenic unless you're very unlucky.
And and around this, you mentioned MRSA earlier. We're diving into this, and doors are opening, and rabbit holes are appearing, and we're diving into them. And we read this lovely article from a lady called Aisling Murphy, I think, from Hartpury College. And she said the third dirtiest item in the house is a dog bowl. And she had very helpfully looked at plastic, stainless, and ceramic.
Okay.
And the interesting thing about the ceramic was, because we talk about plastic bowls in terms of, now we talk about in terms of chemical transfer for the dogs.
Yeah.
Sometimes with stainless, you get a bit of acne on the chin. But with the ceramic, it had less bacteria than the other ones. But it was the one with the MRSA. And you go, how does MRSA get into the bowl that I'm using to feed my dog?
Yeah.
And then you go, well, where does resistant bacteria come from? Well, it comes from 2 places. One is incorrect use of antibiotics. Thank God we've got them. They're brilliant. Overuse of them leads to problems. Well, my dog didn't have antibiotics. Where did the MRSA come from? The other place is chemical cleaning. We talked about how the bugs get wise to it. Okay. And when one bug gets wise to how to be resistant to a cleaner, it can pass that ability to its buddies. It passes it around. A bit like if you think of, you're in a schoolroom and you're all passing around a little memory stick and you're all plugged into your laptops and you've all got that program.
Right. Or a virus that just spreads from kid to kid to kid. Is this epigenetic change or is this sharing gene fragments? Just for my interest, how does a resistant staphylococcus spread its resistance?
Do you know, I'm looking at the visuals, and it's a DNA helix. Mm-hmm. But more than that, that's the point where I go, okay, I know enough about that. I'm off to the next thing.
All right. So, okay, no worries.
But we have some very clever people in white coats. To my eyes, are all about 12 years old with multiple PhDs, and we could ask the question. They're great.
I will know. All right.
I link to them.
Okay. So MRSA in the ceramic bowls.
MRSA.
This is not clever. Right. Okay.
So we're learning all about this, and then we're finding that the pet care is just wonderful, but it's still a side issue for us. We're focused on the commercial cleaning companies who have gone through these millions of liters. It's ending up in our rivers or in our atmosphere as it evaporates. And you say to people, well, where does the chemical go?
Yeah.
Well, I never thought of that. Yeah, well, it's going somewhere. It's not disappearing.
Yeah, you pour this stuff down your loo and it makes it all pretty blue, and then it's just in the water systems. Yeah. And now we know that the water companies just chuck it straight into the river. Yeah.
And we say the sea starts at your plug. Yeah. Your plug hole in your bathroom, your toilet, that's where the sea starts. And to the extent that whether you believe in climate change or not, and I know a lot of people do and other people don't, regardless of whether you do or not, it is shown that the rate of evaporation from the oceans has changed because of the chemical effect on the oceans.
Oh, really? Can you say a bit more about?
Yeah.
So it's not just ocean acidification because of CO2 uptake and carbonic acid and all of the buffering things. This is actual runoff from human activity.
As well as the acidification.
Yeah.
Worrying enough as the acidification of the oceans is, on top of that, they're finding that the chemicals are changing the evaporation rate. Now,
okay. So it must be changing the ionic content. Yeah. Okay.
They're doing it, and also the biofilm at the top of that's
getting. They're destroying the biofilm. Right. Yeah. So that as a corollary to that, I read a paper that came out, I think, at the weekend, because one of the things that the Roslin Institute, who did the Global Oceanic Environmental Survey, the GOES survey, and they were saying that the combination of acidification and runoff and microplastics, the oceans are going to be dead by 2045. And as part of that, the reduction in phytoplankton means a reduction in oxygen production. And we are beginning to see a reduction in oxygen. And that's, it's one of those things of, I don't really care if people decide they don't want to believe in climate change, that's their look-in. But when we have 9% oxygen in the air, that's the equivalent to standing at the top of Kilimanjaro. And most of us aren't going to do too well up there. And that's just standing. You try running at the top of Kilimanjaro.
And thinking.
We're seeing it start. So sorry, that was an aside.
Yeah. No. It's an amazing correlation, because sometimes people don't. You talk about climate change and they think, oh, it's just a conspiracy theory. Fine. But nobody wants that much chemical in the ocean to be causing all these problems. And if the Earth's got two lungs, one being the ocean, one being the rainforest, you don't want to lose either. And as you say,
losing both.
And we're losing both. Yeah. And when it comes to greenhouse gases, okay, we focus on carbon reduction, carbon emissions. Yeah. Water vapor is a much bigger greenhouse gas. Much bigger, and now we're putting more of it into it. So whether you believe in, like I say, whether you believe in climate change or not, the oceans are becoming poisoned and changed by a number of things, mainly chemicals. And whether that's chemicals that's coming off the microplastic breakdown, or the chemicals you put down your toilet, or the chemicals that you want to put in your rain jacket to stop so the rain runs off it. Whatever, it's ending up in there.
And so, are you finding that if you are amongst people who are climate denial side of the spectrum, do they take it's only a tiny part of the meta crisis, and that pollution is a huge part, and where do you think it's all going? Because it seems to me that's the fossil fuel companies have not spent as much money in creating fake narratives around pollution as they have around the specific pollution of CO2. Does it gain more traction? Or does it just bounce off in the way that climate emergency does?
I find that it's an undeniable thing.
Right.
And when I take my own shift, so back in the day when we were focused on heat pumps for air conditioning, we were very much focused on the polar ice caps and climate change. Efficiency, heat pump efficiency. And now, during my process, we came to the realization that we're going to poison ourselves to death way before we're going to drown ourselves to death.
Right.
So some people would say, look, climate change is a natural thing, and the earth wobbles and we get hotter, we get colder, and that's fine. I'm not even getting involved in that anymore because it doesn't matter.
Right. That's right. Because the toxic runoff is actually going to kill us all first.
Exactly. And
great.
It's not just toxins we're using in cleaner products. We do what we can do. And the wonderful thing about that is that we're able to help other people who want to do something, do what it is that they're able to do. And I think if everybody does just what they're able to do, then all of a sudden you got a change going on.
Right.
Because your celebrity won't hire or get their private jet and fly from America to Paris for an ice cream. If all of us are different, they know if they read their audience, they're not going to do that. So there's no point in saying, well, why don't it doesn't matter I clean my toilet because so-and-so is polluting the airways with its an ice cream. What that was. I won't even bother. And that's the problem. That's where we just bend over and count.
If 8 billion people change their behavior, the 0.001% will have to change theirs. Yes.
Exactly. And there's certain things that are undeniable, but they're very disparate. So you can find let's say, a report on the mating of blackbirds being affected by antidepressants.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Are they antidepressants as well?
Yeah.
Oh, God. In the water?
In the water and in the environment. And so when you look at the amount of, cocaine, cleaner products, antibiotics, the stuff they put in the dog's neck, the neurotoxins you put in your dog, Viagra, I don't know, all of these things. Where are they going?
Yeah.
And some of these long chain molecules don't break up very easy, and they will find them in the Himalayas. They find them in polar bears.
Yeah. Well, that's the forever chemicals. They're the kind of poster child for this, is they're in the rain now. It is impossible to have water that isn't laced with forever chemicals that are endocrine disruptors and carcinogenic.
Yeah. endocrine disruption is something I think people are becoming a little bit aware of. We certainly see it in the pet world. We see it with control of allergies, where they suppress these particular medicines, I use that word lightly, to suppress the immune system so that the dog doesn't itch.
It does not,
basically.
right.
And then what happens is you're suppressing the body's own natural ability to deal with naturally occurring cancerous cells.
Yeah.
And where it may not be causing the cancerous cells in the first place, it's allowing them to come through. So you multiply that by your Teflons and whatever's in our food and whatever's in our food packaging, all that. You can get a bit depressed about it. And sometimes think, what the hell are we doing? And well, what we can do is what we can do. So if every person just says, well, what can I do? Maybe I'll shop at the farm shop a little bit more. Maybe I won't wear that antiperspirant. Maybe I will drive less. Just drive less.
And maybe I'll stop cleaning my house with stuff that is going to destroy everything that it touches.
Yeah. And that's linked to things like fertility issues, the quats in particular, fertility issues, AMR, antimicrobial resistance. And funny enough, I was talking about this earlier. There was a report in 2005, there was a call from a professor in University College Hospital in London, where he said what we should do is start washing our hands with soap and yogurt, because he was seeing a correlation between the rise of MRSA back then and the areas of the hospital that were being extra cleaned.
Right.
So that was really interesting. And the other thing that was really interesting, while we're on it, right? Sorry, I have these thoughts going through my head like ticker tape going, no, don't say that. But we had a situation back in, I'm going to say 2018. It might have been 2019. And I had a lovely chat with just a few minutes with the then Secretary for Health, Matt Hancock. Thought he was a great guy. I was really, really disappointed about the Machiavellian moves that got rid of him, but I thought, I know the things that happened afterwards. But
say his name. Anyway. I didn't catch the name.
Matt Hancock.
Okay, Matt Hancock. Right. Okay.
And it was a really nice conversation.
Right, of course
he was giving a presentation. I asked a question, and to be fair to him, he said, let me get back to you on that. And later on, someone else was then talking, and I had a tap on my shoulder, and I looked, and there's Matt Hancock squatting down in his honker. And we would identify he was leaving, and he said that question. He says, go talk to my guys, and which I did. And the question was about NHS, because we had reports that we were looking at that we weren't involved with about how getting away from chemical cleaners actually improved AMR and improved health care acquired infections. In other words, people getting infections
iatrogenic infections
down the hospital. Yeah. So went and spoke to these people who were great, and they said, okay, here's somebody, we'll get your name. But basically they said, we'll get your name, but good luck.
Because so you're up against an industry that's maintaining the cleaners, right? It's this, and so yes, and predatory capitalism working as intended.
Yeah. So this was, and I don't know if this is the same now, but we went and spoke to one of the buying groups because they're all kind of clumped together, and I already knew that the at that stage, and it may have changed because that was 5 years ago, that the purchasing departments were split into 11, what they call towers. One department might look after buying it, I don't know, ambulances and MRI machines or whatever. And the other one would look after what we would consider the soft services, what they call the hotel services. And we had a long conversation with someone, and basically he was, yeah, we're interested, but no. And we're showing them these results from Italy, where, again, we weren't involved with somebody else's IP, a cleaning contractor actually, but there was 3 universities involved, 5 hospitals, and they monitored for 6 months. Ordinary use, just monitored, swab. And then they switched over to probiotic cleaning, and they monitored again for another 6 months. I think it's 25,500 swabs, 11,500 patients involved. And they found that changing to a probiotic protocol reduced the rate of health care acquired infections by 52%.
Dear Lord. If that was a pharmaceutical? the company that made that pharmaceutical would never have to make anything ever again.
Exactly.
52%.
Now, we tried to find information. We found some information we thought we could rely on at the time. And we thought that reducing, say, by half, the amount of healthcare-acquired infections that the NHS suffered would save them
billions.
It was, I think, let me work it out. It was £19 million a week.
Wow.
Yeah. So a billion.
Yeah.
But not only that, it was also, we worked it out, there was 38 people a week dying from healthcare-acquired infections. So you cut that in half and it's 19 deaths.
So never mind £1 billion a year and significant numbers of people who are dying.
And we got told.
I think there's going to be a knock-on effect because the morbidity, again, it's not just about mortality. So it would be more.
The resources of the NHS. And when COVID comes along a couple of years later, this becomes even more important. And when you look at the figures from Wuhan published their figures and they said 1 in 7 people who went into hospital with COVID got a secondary infection in the hospital, bacterial infection in the lungs.
Right.
And half the deaths were from that group.
Oh, right.
So you work that out and you go, well, that means we could have saved, those guys could have saved 25% of the hospital deaths of COVID in Wuhan.
Yeah.
At the center of it. So, but we got told, and I'm thinking of, having 65% of my way through your book. And so this is why I'm talking about these things. That it was actually, we got redirected. They said, you're going to have to go and talk to, and they named them, a household name corporate company that deals with this on behalf of the NHS.
Because you need to persuade them to use the probiotics because they would
be the ones approving the purchase. They would be the ones that we would be selling to.
And I'm guessing they didn't.
It got very muddy very quickly. And, some things were said after that I can't really repeat. Needless to say, didn't endear us with anybody. But the door was closed and there was a commercial element there which I didn't know about.
Yeah, of course.
Now,
this needs a post office, someone to make a documentary about it, doesn't it? Because this is basic corruption.
Yeah. Now, fast forward 2 years later, or 1 year later, when you're in the middle of COVID, what the hell's going on? But if you take the basic was that there was a financial incentive for somebody somewhere in the NHS, and the NHS, which doesn't have enough nurses, doesn't have enough doctors, and people have gone on strike, ambulance drivers, junior doctors, nurses, consultants have talked about it. It's just, something's not quite right. So when certain politicians talked in their manifesto about sorting the NHS, I'm thinking, how are you going to do this?
Yeah. Well, but that's because we're in a meta crisis and you have to sort the entire meta crisis and you're never going to be able to sort just one bit of it. Can we, for people, because I'm still there's so many things I want to talk about and we still haven't got, so you were in air quality and then you were selling all these things coming from Luxembourg. At what point did you create Ingenious? And what was the incentive to that?
Well, we wanted to separate out the mechanical, like the hard from the soft. And so it was Ingenious Air, became Ingenious. We also then made Ingenious Probiotics and put all the probiotics through that. So Ingenious Probiotics, it's actually pure Ingenious Limited, trading as Ingenious Probiotics.
Okay.
Because we wanted to talk more and more about the animals.
Yeah.
And something with air in the name didn't make any sense.
No, okay.
I mean, ideally, we could probably do a 10 company so we could talk to the horse people directly just about horses. And dog people directly just about dogs, but that just becomes a bit of a...
accounting becomes complex. All right, so tell us about the things that you sell. And I think the key, and the reason I wanted to bring you on this, not everybody who listens is a pet owner, I'm sad to say, but there we go, is because the implications, it seems to me, of combined human and animal health are huge. And the fact that there's washing up liquid, say, that I can wash the pet bowls in, I can also wash everything in. I would really dearly like you to do a dishwasher tablet. Maybe you already do. Maybe that's not possible. Maybe dishwasher temperatures kill everything. But let's talk about what you make. And I particularly want to drill down into the ears because, again, I used to be an anaesthetist we would alternate soft tissue and orthopedic weeks. And in the soft tissue week, we were either doing reconstructive surgery on bulldogs and pugs and things, just opening up their airways so they could actually breathe, or cancers, or a lot of it was total ear canal ablations where a dog's ears had got so bad, the secondary infection was so appalling, and you could smell them coming in, from the length of the hospital away, which was several hundred yards. And they would just take out the whole of the ear canal because, a surgeon is a surgeon. Your only tool is a hammer. Everything becomes a nail. You have a scalpel. Your response to stuff is surgery. But that was because all other responses had failed. And I heard from you something that literally blew my mind. So tell us, let's not drill too much into ears because it's probably only my obsession. But
no, it's actually a really good place to start because it's a really nice way to explain how the probiotics differ, and also explains our experiences with this. Because at the same time all this was going on, I think we got the bit in the story where people are tapping him in the shoulder and said, "Come and talk to us about pets." And we're going, yeah, we'll get to you in a minute. We'll get to you in a minute because we're stupid. So it took us a while to realize. But ears are one of the biggest things. Ears, teeth, and skin. So we started learning then that this ear issue amongst dogs is crazy. It's so prevalent. Skin issues off the charts. And we're like, oh my God, what the hell? We knew those chemicals. And what the hell's going on? Anyway, we had mixed response from vets because you do. But we're going to be looking at this again later in this year. We're going to look at the vets because now it's 5-6 years down the road. We got a lot more to say. We got more data, things that they want to know. And what we found is that some vets will go, yeah, this makes sense, and they're holistically minded and they're at it. And we had one of those. I'm going to use some feedback from him to explain it because he was finding that they would get this repeat ear infection situation. So for the people listening, when you talk about that total ear canal ablation, that you're removing the inner ear, there's been a sequence of events up before that was repeat ear infection.
Years long, usually. Years. Because people don't want their dogs to have no ear canal. It's not what you go to first by any means.
It's suffering. And we moved in to a new office around about 2018, 2019. And the people looking after the building knocked the door, say, hello, hi, welcome. And she saw the product on my desk and she went, oh my God, is that you? And in which case I'm like, what have I done?
Yeah.
And she was telling me the story of her dog was due, having had all these years of problems, was due to have this total removal of the ear. And somebody said, go to the vet, who happened to be the vet that we were working with, and get a second opinion. And not only did the dog not have to have the surgery, but it stopped the repeat ear infection cycle.
And that, guys, I cannot tell you to people listening how much of a game changer that is, because these are dogs that they've basically got cauliflower ears. The whole of the ear canal is a stinking, suppurating mess. It was one of the nastiest surgeries ever because it is just a lake of pus, and you're doing surgery around this, and you have to flood the dog with antibiotics before, during, and after. And it's already had multiple antibiotics anyway. It's likely to be, your ultimate incubator of really nasty total resistances because they've tried everything, and it's still got a lake of pus in one or both ears. Yeah. And you're saying you spray this stuff, and it's cleared up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll refer to a conversation I had this morning with a holistic vet that works with us. And she was asking the question, just like you said, if there's loads of pus, can I still use the thing? And I said, look, you got to remember, we're not vets. This is not a medicine.
You're right. We're not prescribing. We're definitely not. Anybody listening, we are not prescribing this.
Exactly. So as a vet, I said, you've got to be comfortable and you've got to be confident. And I said, look, our experience is that is what has happened. But if you want to administer something to get rid of the pus, fine. But then think of it like the relay runners in the Olympics. There's a point where the two runners are handing over the baton and they're both running full pelt. So you get that and then you get no gap, right? And I referred her back to the story about the vet I just mentioned earlier, where he was telling us when this lady had, when I mentioned what this lady had said, and I had other people give me similar stories. He said, oh yeah. He said, what we figured out was that when the dog would present with an infection, we would use an antibiotic, get rid of the infection, no problem. And with some dogs, lo and behold, they'd be back. The course would last a couple of weeks, and a couple of weeks after the course was finished, dog could be back. And we would do a swab and send it away, and we'd find it was a different pathogen before. So we would maybe change antibiotics or whatever, and we'd get rid of it and be fine for 2-week course, and then for a couple of weeks after that, and then the dog would present itself. No, the dog wouldn't present itself. The owner would present the dog. But the dog would be presented with yet another infection. And the important thing to remember here is that it's not the same infection coming back, because the antibiotics work. The thing to remember is that what we've done here, like antibacterial shampoos we talked about earlier, like antibacterial flow cleaner, you're wiping out all the microbiome. Yeah. And especially with some dogs are prone to it more than other breeds. So something else then can come along and set up, colonize inside the ear, because all the defense is gone.
Yeah, you've lost the good bacteria. And it's often a yeast infection, I think, isn't it? There's a yeast infection. It smells yeasty.
Yeah.
And because the bacteria that might otherwise manage to control things have been annihilated. And so the opportunistic things go, oh, look, here's space. We'll just take this over.
Yeah. And the ear's a beautiful place for that. Warm, there's food.
Especially the floppy ears breed.
And the floppy ears especially, yeah. But even Frenchies.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and bugs.
Yes.
So he was, in some cases, this was going on for years. And he was telling me then about this dog that they fixed it. And I said to him, oh, great. So who supplies the client then every month with the probiotic spray? And he went, no, Joe, you don't get it.
Fixed it.
It's over. Yeah, and I'm like, one tiny part of my brain's going, I wanted to sell stuff, And then the other part explode and going, my God, that's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Did I do that? And I didn't make the stuff, just bring it in, kind of knocking doors and trying to persuade people, if you like. And so we had a couple of other people mention this, where they'd gone to this vet as a second opinion and not had the surgery and stopping the repeat. And you're right. In some cases, you think, well, where does this infection come from in the first place? Foxes don't get it. Wolves don't get it. But it could be a yeast thing, that maybe somebody's using an anti-microbiome thing to get rid of the yeast, because sometimes you got to do that if the yeast is well established. But the important thing is, again, like that relay team, important that there's no point at which nobody's carrying the baton. Yeah. It's got to be a seamless transfer. So start using the probiotics before you quite finish using the antibiotics. Right. It doesn't matter if they kill off some of the good guys. Look, it's okay, as long as there's no gap.
Right.
And then we know what the microbiome is in there, because we've put it there.
Yep.
And then we just put lots of good ones in, and eventually then you can trail off. So that's how we treat ears.
I'm wondering how, because you're importing this stuff, so you didn't do the development, but it must have taken a while for someone to work out what, let's say, dog's ears or cat's teeth need that's safe, that if a person squirts it in the dog's ear and happens to get some on their tongue, it doesn't really matter, and works. And how many iterations did they go through to get to the stuff that actually works? Do we know this? Because you were telling us about this guy who spent his first 3 years in the hospital, and my goodness, and he is now making stuff that promotes the biome. Can you tell us a little bit? Is he well and healthy? Because he's got a good biome now?
Yeah, he spent a lot of time, but he was a semi-pro footballer for his life. So yeah, before getting into this, so no, he's healthy. First baby on the way. So he's all good. And his father was a dental surgeon, and they were looking for something else to clean the spittoon drains with, being very aware of the amount of chemicals in products like that, and how much more exposed people like dental technicians and hairdressers and people like that, they're exposed to so many different chemicals. That was the genesis of the whole thing.
Okay.
And as a side effect, when he mentioned that, I was right there, because at the time we were dealing with a company in Bristol who looked after, all they did was look after buildings that housed dentists. And the biggest problem, the guy was telling me, was underfloor leaks from spittoon drains because of what they clean them with.
Whoa.
They're cleaning with stuff that would eventually corrode through the drain. Anyway, so this corroborated all the evidence. I was right there. Teams and teams of R&D, like a few years of R&D, a few millions of euros of R&D before they ever come out and saw the light of day, get the product right. And when you get into that microbiological world, there's which most of us don't need to know. There's rules, there's understandings. For example, when you put forward a probiotic for use in one of our products, it has got to be in a certain classification group, which means it's safe for food. It's got to be also non-mutatable.
Right. That must be hard, because what bacteria do is mutate.
Yeah, but these guys know how to select. Okay. So you get the ones that guarantee don't mutate, because the mutation of a good bacteria isn't good, because they can pass that ability, that mutation ability, onto the bad ones. Right. Yep. So all this is kind of taken care of in the labs, and there are continual R&D. So we've got a new formula for the soap coming out at the end of the year, for example, the hand soap. So they're always looking at the improvements, and then they are seen then as an expert in that world. They are seen as the people.
Okay, everybody else looks up to whatever it is you've got is the right stuff.
In that competitive world, yeah. Yep. So in that biology, most of us don't ever need to see that side of things.
Okay, but it's interesting nonetheless. So we've got stuff that you can put in dogs' ears. You can presumably put it in people's ears. Not that people end up with such bad ear infections as dogs, but I remember getting ear infections as a kid, and it's really painful.
Really painful, inner ear
or middle ear infections, I suppose.
So your question is loaded. So can you? Yes, you can physically hold the thing. Are we licensed to sell it to humans? No.
Do we? Okay. But is there a human equivalent?
There isn't a human equivalent.
Okay.
There could be, but I think that'll be down the line, because you're talking about a couple of years of regulatory.
Okay, you got to jump through a lot of hoops.
Hoops upon hoops upon hoops. Rightly so, of course.
Yeah, of course.
So in the meantime, where we focused on dogs primarily, cats secondly, because that's the ratio in which those animals have problems. Horses is our next big area, because it's the same. Yes, the horses. So we have something called allergen free that we use on dog skin for dermatitis and so on. We used to have it in an equine range called Pastern Care for sweet itch and mud fever.
Right.
It's the same. So all of those things we talk about, the biome. The one thing that's slightly different with horses is that we have a wound care or dermal care in a paste, so you can get it into the frog.
Okay, right, cool.
Get it in between the hoof and stay there. So humans, not so much. That's a whole other thing.
Okay. But let's stick with the dogs then, because we've got things we can spray on their skin, we've got things we can spray on their teeth. I am guessing, and this is moving into, I am a vet, so I'm allowed to say these things, that however much you spray their teeth, if you're feeding them kibble or, little dried dog food, or even dog food out of a can, you're probably going to be spraying their teeth for quite a while. If you can get them onto a raw diet that is a healthy raw diet, not all diets are equal, you're more likely to be able to maintain healthy teeth, gums, and the whole of their, particularly a young dog, they need to be chewing to develop their whole skull systems. The muscles and the bones and the tendons. So you and I are not allowed to we're certainly not allowed to prescribe raw feeding for other people, but I can say that I raw feed all my animals.
Yeah.
And their teeth currently, I don't have a dog at the moment, but when I did, her teeth were completely fine. But I would probably now also get the dental spray and spray it prophylactically once in a while. Would that be a sensible thing for me as a vet to do?
Yeah, we would say if you're going to use it prophylactically, twice a week, because the probiotics have a life cycle of about three days, so if you start applying them, they go away, and we want them to go. We don't want them ever to build up, that's part of the safety.
You want to have a balance continually in flux.
Exactly. And also they don't stay around forever. So unlike other
products, not breed their own populations. So my imagining is that let's say teeth. You create a good healthy gut microbiome, and millions of years of evolution would say that wolves have quite a healthy tooth, mouth, oral microbiome that they maintain by probably eating some elk poo and lots of dead rabbits and whatever else. Why do we need to keep continuing?
So the probiotics, like they have if you were to count them on day 1 after the spray and count them on day 3, they would be less. They're designed that way to fade away. So you just top them up every 3 days.
Okay. And this is deliberately set so that we don't end up with mutation and an overgrowth of a bacterium that we have introduced.
Yes, exactly so.
Okay.
Exactly so. So it makes it lovely and safe. And when you compare that to people will be using chemicals or even fine metal,
okay. Colloidal silver or something,
which is not going to go away ever.
Right.
And is bad for the aquatic life and is going to, it's around forever. Anyway, so we use something that's got a shorter life cycle, and that we know we can control that. And so for example, if you've got a hot spot on the skin, when the probiotics have done their job and the skin's fine, the skin's going to go back to its own, whatever it was, microbiome.
Right. And ears the same. When you were saying you got rid of your horrendous lake of pus in the ear, presumably it's established its own microbiome and you don't need to keep spraying it because it's got its own microbiome that is then eating the yeast or creating the enzymes that you need or whatever.
You just spray just to keep it top up with ears until that point comes when you think, we're way beyond, everything's absolutely fine. And then you'd slow it down bit by bit.
Okay.
And let it, the natural take over. And maybe if you're cleaning the ears, then use the probiotic for that onto a cotton ball.
Right.
And clean them. And that's okay. But the dental, I would keep doing it because it's like brushing your teeth or like flossing.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
You're going to keep prophylactically getting rid of the organic matter in the sockets,
And meanwhile, we've got a surface spray that has actually got back. I think this is one of the things that people find counterintuitive. They're used to spraying stuff that kills everything. And what you're saying is, no, spray on the good stuff because you can't kill everything for very long. You might clean your kitchen surface and then the air is dumping a load of bacteria on anyway. But if you spray it with our stuff, you're putting on the bacteria that you want there. That will hopefully, if they get any organic matter or anything else, they'll emerge from the little spores and eat it. I'm massively anthropomorphizing bacteria here, but that's basically what happens, yes?
That's basically what happens. So the cleaning continues. The microbiome protection continues.
Yeah.
The creation of resistant bad bugs stops.
Right.
Because you're not putting
the contamination of the environment stops.
Contamination of the environment. Because you imagine next time you're cleaning your floor with something nasty and you're pouring the dirty water down the sink, you just know what's going on.
Or your dog or your child is walking or crawling across the floor, absorbing what you've just put on the floor into its skin. I think that was one of the things that I really took from the various podcasts I've listened to with you is the extent to which kids and animals are absorbing the stuff that we're walking with shoes or slippers across the floor and it probably isn't touching us, but they're sprawling all over it.
Yeah. They're lying naked on your floor. They're sweating because there's some products out there that will say pet safe. And when you read a small print, it'll say, keep your pets outside until it dries.
Right.
And then you ask the question, well, where's the nasty stuff gone?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just has in a bottle and it's fine. I said, well, okay, let's examine this. So it's dry, so it's not penetrating the skin. And your dog sweats through the pads of his paws.
Most people don't know that dogs have sweat glands on their paws, except huskies, which don't because it creates crystals.
Oh, that's interesting. Did not know that.
Discovered. Yeah, sled dog people go for the huskies that don't create crystals in their paws because otherwise they get micro.
It's the same with cats, because my cat sweats when they take it to the vet and she walks across a little black mat.
Little damp paw prints.
It's damp. And the first time she did it, I thought, is she weak? No, she's not. It's just, but also we get sent, I got to try and, because this is a family show, but we get sent pictures of canine genitalia on occasion because they can also get wetness in those areas.
Right.
And you get effectively what could be like, call it mild chemical burn. For want of a better word. So it's just a really interesting. So when you say to people, look, where's the bad stuff gone? Has it evaporated now? They're just breathing it in.
Yeah.
Is it still there? They're going to re-wet it with their body. They're going to absorb it through their skin. They're going to maybe lick their paws. And that's all been, and that's one of the reasons why I think in 2008, there was a study in New York State and it showed through taking blood and urine samples that the pets had way more chemicals in them than their human owners.
Right. Because and more total, not just more per kilogram.
Exactly. More total, not just more per per kilogram. And it called it a wake-up call. But that, of course, was like, what, 16 years ago?
Yeah, nobody's woken up yet. Well, you have. And hopefully people listening have.
You're back into it, like advertisements.
Right.
You know, your house should smell like this if you want your friends to think you're not a slob.
Yeah,
or to keep your children
your
healthy.
Your laundry should smell like this.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't. And because you're absorbing that stuff through your skin then.
Yeah, fabric softener.
Yeah.
What the hell, you know? So we use probiotics instead of chemicals for that. And again, what's going from your laundry machine into wastewater?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing.
Straight into the rivers.
Yeah.
So what do you use? I didn't know. Have you got laundry liquid or sheets or?
Yeah, we have a laundry, probiotic laundry care. And it was originally designed for electromuscle stimulation jackets. So these electric muscles that you might wear, big in Germany, not so big over here yet, but you can do a 20-minute workout, gives you the equivalent of working there for an hour because it's firing up the muscles.
Without actually having to do any work.
No, you got to work. Nice try. Okay. Nice try. But you got to work, and they do them for horses. But it fires up the muscles.
Right.
I can imagine it'd be great for rehab in certain circumstances,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, physio.
So these are like jackets that then have electrical components in them. Right. So they've got to be washed delicately. So our product was originally designed for that, which is why it says fitness and wellness on the bottle instead of dog. But we sell it pretty much exclusively to the pet owner to replace the chemical base. Wash the dog beds.
But we could wash our own bedding in it too.
Yeah, wash everything in it.
Wow.
We just wash everything in it. We wouldn't don't use any other chemical-based cleaner products. So, so again, just getting rid of chemicals. But when you're talking about dog allergies, you say to people, what are you washing your bedding with? What are you exposing? What chemicals are you exposing your dog with through what you've washed the floor with, what you've washed the surface with, what you've washed the bowls with, what you've washed their bedding with, and the harnesses, and the car, and what we use to shampoo the carpets.
Right.
So we're able to, and pet owners are brilliant for this. They are.
Because they really care.
They care.
Yeah.
They care. And we have people that, sometimes you deal with people that are really upset, really in a bad place.
Their dogs are suffering in front of them, or their cats.
And costing a fortune because vet prices have gone through the roof in the past however many years.
Yes.
So if we can reduce the time that they have to bring them to the vet, and sometimes you say, look, if there's a bone sticking through the skin, get your dog to the vet, will you? Don't be totally. The skin spray. So, but if we can reduce the times that the dog needs medication, if we can reduce the time that the dog needs to go to the vet in the first place, then we're enabling at the same time the pet owner to do what it is that they can do to reduce their chemical exposure, the dog's chemical exposure, and their chemical footprint on the planet, which we know is way more important than the carbon footprint.
Yes.
So, and then you're back to like, well, just do what you can do. Never mind about somebody else pumping stuff up through a chimney in a factory in the Middle East or whatever.
Let's not, because there's this narrative of, well, stuff's happening in China that's bad, so there's no point in us doing anything, which is a very deliberate deflection. Denial, deflection, despair is the route that they want us to go. Yeah. So just do what you can do.
And there's a certain thing as well, because we have these conversations and it gets a bit deep, but when you are doing what you can do, the person next to you is seeing that from your own personal spirit or soul or whatever, that you are doing something.
Yeah.
And it bothers a lot of us when we look at something on the television. We see a lot of bad stuff on the television, which isn't good for our flight or fight responses, but sometimes there's nothing we could do and it bothers. But if you say, look, I can do this little thing. And if somebody else sees me doing that little thing and somebody else sees them do that's it. And if they don't, they don't. But when you look in the mirror in the morning, you've done what you can do.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day.
And you talk about it. I mean, I think it's partly I'm doing this because I feel that it's a good thing to do for the planet, but also I think for pet owners, here's my dog, my golden retriever that had really bad hotspots, say, or my Bernese mountain dog that's ears were falling apart, or my poodle whose teeth were just a lake of pus. And I've used these products and my dog is now healthy. And I've cut out all the other products and my house doesn't smell bad. It just doesn't smell of chemicals. people will talk. I mean, I'm on however many Facebook groups, and I can't tell you how often I've told people about Ingenious products and various breeders of, tell your Cavapoo people about this because they will need to know. Because we all know that they're going to have bad ears. They just are. Sorry, Cavapoo people, but, I'm not singling you out particularly, because pretty much anything with floppy ears is going to have yeast infections because there isn't enough air circulation. Not just those, as we said. I'm a vet. I'm allowed to say these things. So it seems to me that there's two sets of motivations that we go through. It's the I want to do less harm, but there's the I want to do good, and that the look, I am doing good has much more tangible impact on people than I slightly think I've done less harm, but I can't really tell because, hey, the oceans are still dying. But that will spread, I would imagine. How are you getting traction with vets? Because you're not allowed to go to someone and go, okay, spray this, it'll cure your dog's ears, because that's prescribing and that's not allowed. You're saying at the beginning, you're beginning to talk to more vets. And I would have thought, if I were still in practice and somebody had come along and said, here was a Bernese mountain dog that was going for a TCAT, total ear canal ablation, and we used this stuff and it did not need the surgery, look, here's the photographic evidence, that would be my epiphany moment. But I'm also getting the same with horse gut biome stuff, of going, look, guys, you get the gut biome right, and a lot of behavioral issues change. I want to talk about behavior in a minute. And there are a percentage of my former colleagues where they have a similar psychological response as they do to homeopathy, which is, it can't happen, therefore I don't see that it is happening. Is that still a thing, or are you beginning to overcome that?
I would say with vets, it's been interesting. So we started into the vet route initially with pet care, and it was a tough one. And we were busy doing other things. And then the holistic care community literally was tapping us on the shoulder saying, come and talk to us. We'll listen to you. And eventually they got through to me, kind of thing. Okay. And then this whole other world opened up, and we found we were talking to these people who care, these people who are, if they're naturally approaching their feeding, for example, or their cleaning, the natural approach isn't just segmented, it's across the board for them. And they were a fantastic audience. And we were doing great things to help them and getting wonderful feedback. And it's been a real kind of love in. And you meet lots and lots of people who've set up their shops to sell food that they think is best for their dog. And they've researched, and maybe they've gone on nutrition courses, and they've changed career paths. And these are really wonderful people to surround yourself with, you know? And amongst them then has included, because they're in that community, holistic minded vets.
Yep.
And we have holistic minded vets who sell our product. And I guess, like we were saying earlier, because a number of years have gone by and we've got case studies like the one with the total ear ablution, or even wound care, even post-op wound care, where the vet says to the owner, this is healed twice as quickly as we were expecting it to. Yeah, we've been using the probiotic spray. So all of that has given us now the platform to go and talk to vets. We have a vet at the lab as well over in Luxembourg.
Right.
But it's a very different audience. And
this is now you're going to orthodox vets, we might call.
Yeah, we're going to go to orthodox vets. We're going to go to people who feed orthodoxly, because we find that if our number one selling product is the dental care, and our main area of reach is holistic minded, usually raw feeding, well aware of meaty bones and so on, and still our number one product is the dental care, how much more do these other people need it? And people think that the kibble is going to get in between the teeth and clean the teeth. You know, it's kind of
or these little rusk bones that are sold to clean your dog's teeth. And you go, yeah, really, people, do you want to try eating one of those and see? And tell me how clean your teeth were after.
And I think one of the things we're able to find, Manda, is that there's a line we can use where we can say, look, there's going to be times you're going to need to use medications and pharmaceuticals for your beloved pet or for your client's pet, Mr. or Mrs. Vet. But in between, if we can reduce the amount you use, we're really happy with that. But also, what's the chance of having better efficacy? More chance that the antibiotics working if you're not using them as often.
You're not overusing them. Industrial doses of antibiotics are not a clever thing, people. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's a real, and at the same time, I had a friend recently who had a problem with their cat, and the vet didn't use antibiotics, and it was try this, try that, or this, and then eventually it turned out to be an infection. And my friend saying, why didn't the vet just use antibiotics in the beginning? And I'm then defending the vet, going, well,
yeah, so they're quite an ethical vet. They're trying not to do that.
Exactly. Not a vet that I know personally. And I thought, no, they're looking for, so maybe one animal every now and again, they should start with antibiotics. But by and large, if you just help them reduce, then your pet or your client's pet is going to do better on the antibiotics when they really, really need them. And we can help that. So I think that's the approach there. Where,
and you're not flushing ampicillin down the drains. That has to become important.
Yeah, I think there was about 2 years ago, there was an article in the Irish Times saying, and it used the word awash. The rivers are awash with antibiotics. And they can even measure, they can extrapolate levels of antimicrobial resistance from measuring sewage. What goes down the drain. So all of these meds, these antibiotics and other meds, and like I say, the contraceptive pill and the Viagra and everything going, all ending up someplace. So we just
and then we're drinking them, because basically a lot of our tap water is recycled stuff that's gone down the drains, and they've filtered it a bit, but they can't filter everything out.
Yeah.
Before we finish, we're way over time, but this has been so exciting. It seems to me, and partly I've talked on the podcast, we were talking to Dr. Jenny Goodman, who's an ecological doctor, a little while ago, and before that to some nutritionists, that human behavior is very tightly linked to our gut microbiome, and that possibly, amongst many, many other sources of real trauma and our incapacity really to connect with the world in a way that's healthy and generative, is that our gut microbiome is so out of whack because ultra-processed foods and chemicals in the environment. And I'm guessing we're also seeing, I do a lot of dog behavior stuff. I was in a webinar the other week where we're really looking at trauma-informed care, Andrew Hale's work. But this was someone in the States who said she wakes every morning and she prays for something as simple as a separation anxiety, because now they're seeing really complex trauma in dogs. And that for her, this is the canary in the coal mine, because the dogs are getting all of the trauma and the energetics in a household, but they're not getting the dopamine hits of social media to act as an anesthetic. So the dogs are showing super complex, deeply traumatized behavior that the people are slightly covering up. And so it seems to me, obviously gut microbiome we haven't really spoken about, because your field is not gut biome, but your field is surface biome, all the aspects of the surface biome. And that these are intimately linked. If somebody is saying we should be washing our hands with soap and yogurt, that's because we need, our biomes are contiguous in the end. Our mouth biome is contiguous with our gut biome, which is contiguous with our skin biome, which is in the end contiguous with our ear biome. And it might be that the products are tailored to these areas, but there's going to be some overflow. Taking all that as my baseline, it occurs to me that if we are beginning to see dogs and then people, where people are really working at getting the environment to be biome positive, let's say, are you noticing, and this would be purely anecdotally, behavioral shifts in the people or the animals? And this might be a question too far. I'm just genuinely curious if this is a thing.
Okay, it's a long question. We definitely make the connection with behavior and all kinds of things, including the biome. Talking to behavior experts about this, and I jokingly say, you don't give your kid blue Smarties just before they go to bed.
Right. Or indeed at all.
Or indeed at all. Yeah. So it's the chemicals are going to be disrupting. We don't know what they're firing off. The connection between the gut microbiome and everything from Alzheimer's to depression is becoming well known in humans. Yeah. So people know that a healthy microbiome. What is a healthy microbiome? I think that's the important question. A real diverse microbiome is good. Lots and lots of different bacteria. And the same on the surface. If we just have way more of the good than the bad. So with behavior, yes, if the dog's in pain, and sometimes we've had to ask people, because people are talking about the dogs biting their feet, let's say, and you might say, well, have you checked the harness or the collar, or have you got a little bit of tingling going on? Is a dog, is there habitual? Is it a cry for help? Is there anxiety? Or is it, not just about spraying something on there? And then that's leading on to dogs licking to the affected, they're affecting the follicles coming through the skin.
Yeah.
And then getting infections. Yeah. And interdigital cysts. And then you got laser surgery, all from a non-happy situation.
Disrupted biome, potentially.
Yeah. And I think the ancients used to believe we had a brain in our tummy, because that's where the gut feeling, and you go with your gut. So,
and now we know that the gut produces more serotonin than anywhere else.
Yeah. And some of the microbiome in there are producing some of the vitamins.
Yes.
That we can't get from plants or can't get from food.
Yeah.
So the connection between gut microbiome and pretty much everything is becoming, so I think it's an easier conversation. And therapists would say, look, you can't train a dog that's in pain. Yeah. You can't train, dog that's unhappy, a dog that's just not quite feeling great.
Or a dog that's itchy. Itchiness can drive them crazy, and it's a big behavioural thing. Is if your dog's got a mild itch. I remember doing a training, and they said if it scratches more than twice in a 90-minute consult, you need to watch its skin before you worry about all the other behavioural stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest conversations we have is about itchy dogs, and it spirals, and the people get worried, and the dog picks up on the worry, and they're so sentient. Yeah. They're picking up on people's anxiety. Yeah. Like I said, we've had that with some conversations where I've had to grasp a nettle and say, your dog's grand. Let's talk about you.
Yes, well again, and as a vet, that one of the many reasons I'm not a vet anymore is exactly that.
And the people are, the right people are really open to that and loving, and you've got to choose to talk about it. So, but definitely the connection between gut microbiome and behavior, anything that affects the dog and behavior, we definitely see more conversations. We don't deal directly with the dog enough to see the changes, but we speak with enough behavior therapists and pet owners to see, it's a connection, definitely.
All right, lovely. I think I've used enough of your time. This has been so fascinating. Thank you so much. I've learned huge amounts, and this is a field, again, that I thought I knew about. So I'm hoping that the listeners are really opening up to exactly as you said. Each one of us can do stuff.
Yeah.
We can diminish our use of the bad stuff. We can increase our use of the good stuff. And the world is a happier place as a result, and that this is a really good thing. Is there anything that you wanted to say at the end? I will put links to Ingenious in the show notes so people can find you. Is there anything else that you wanted to say in closing?
Well, the only thing that comes to mind is that we love what we're doing passionately. And it's a 7-day-a-week thing because it just is. And one of the things we love about it isn't just that we're helping dogs who aren't in a position to make their own choices about their food and what's used around them, but that the pet owners in particular are lighting candles, even the ones that don't realize, just lighting candles. And never, I think, the world has been through some really dark times, and this is one of them. And we just need, just light your own candle. Don't worry about everybody else. You don't have to be an evangelist. And I think that we're helping people do that, and that warms my heart on a cold, exhausting, stressful day.
All right, that's good. I think we might have found the title for the podcast. Joe, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast in your busy 7-day week. It's been fantastic to talk to you.
It's a privilege, man. Lovely to meet you. Lovely to talk to you, and love what you're doing a lot.
Thank you.